Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the Shang Chi Spoilercast. And with us tonight is our very own overexcited bus vlogger, Rohith Dar. How you doing, Rohith?
I'm doing well. With that title, that would probably be an apt title if I were in that situation.
I literally made a Facebook post just saying using this exact picture and just saying if I were a character in the MCU, I would be this guy. This guy is my spirit animal, man. Anyways, all right, guys. So we are breaking down Shang-Chi. So Shang-Shan. All right. Let's get into it. We got Donovan Martin here. He says, this movie exceeded my expectations. The trailer definitely did not do it justice. And also, thanks to the success financially of this movie, now Venom got pushed up to the first of the month. Yeah, guys, did you hear about that? I'm actually kind of stoked for that.
Yeah.
That's a good sign for other movies. Not super excited for Venom, Let There Be Carnage as a whole, but I mean, with the success of this movie, I hope this will obviously probably get a sequel. But with the way it performed, it gives a good win under the sails of Marvel. Moving forward with.
What's funny is that I feel like it's kind of like a double-edged coin of it's a great win for Marvel, but also it's a terrible loss for them as far as the ScarJo situation is concerned.
Right, double-edged sword, by the way.
Okay, right. Just because with the ScarJo situation, it's the success of this movie is pretty clearly the Disney Plus thing did not do Black Widow any favors. Okay, so just in the comments here, just to introduce people, and then we'll get into our thesis statements. Super Billy, hey there, Super Billy, hi there. Hope you're having a good night. Nice to see you. LEB says, damn, you're covering a movie I've seen for once. Well, happy to cater to you, LEB. All right, and then John Kelling says, hey, everyone, I did some podcast while I was taking a culinary class, so I'm going to try and grade the spoiler cast as it happens. All right, John. All right, that sounds fun. Okay, so thesis statements. Rohith, I'm going to hand it to you first since you're our guest.
I think this film really outshines a lot of other MCU films because it particularly takes its influences directly from a genre that's very distinct from the superhero genre, i.e. the wushu genre. The first 5, 10, 15 minutes of this movie are very different to how most Marvel movies and really a lot of super movies start with the lush, forest, the very little English, spoken by a lot of the characters at the start, and that's such an interesting and really significant corner of the MCU that Shang-Chi really gets a shine in having both martial arts and wushu. And I really think the highlight of this film is Tony Leung as Wenwu, and I think people will sort of overlook Simu Liu's performance as Shang-Chi, and I think Simu Liu puts in a really relatable, charismatic, but really sort of understated and subtle performance that I think is similar to sort of how Chadwick Boseman played Black Panther in his solo movie, because he doesn't really get to much to show or broadcast, but when he has his moments to shine, he really shines, and the comedy is really well done. I think people will have the common complaint about the third act, and I would say that the third act, it being so infused with wushu mythology and creatures and all that stuff, just fits with sort of the overall theme and aesthetic of this movie. And I'm really excited for where this character and where this world will continue to develop and potentially impact the rest of the MCU moving forward.
All right, cool. So Donovan Martin is also in the chat, as well as let me see if I've got this right. Aid March. So happy to have you guys on board.
And Atomic Beast, Tiki. Donovan Martin's been here.
Right, Atomic Beast. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dragon. You always keep me in check. Thank you. Donovan says, I always thought in terms of action. I also thought in terms of action, I haven't seen anything like that ever, especially in a superhero film. Atomic Beast says, I think like Black Panther, it really expands the lore of the MCU. What I mean is that while space is already a large place, that having films taking place in other countries truly makes the MCU big. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Guys, this is my number 4 MCU movie. Number 4. I kind of took the exercise to rank them all. For me, if you wanna know the breakdown of it, number 3 is Ragnarok. Number 2 is Infinity War, and of course, number 1 is Guardians. But I mean, it's solidly up there. Like, I would say this is like already in the Mount Rushmore for the MCU for me. I do think story-wise, the 3 that I mentioned have stronger storytelling just in terms of, like, I feel like this movie, all the stuff is really cool and really engaging. The only problem I have with it from a story perspective is it doesn't really fit together as well as it could. But I mean, that being said, everything in this movie, in my opinion, is like awesome. I mean, from that kind of Crouching Tiger-esque opening sequence to the San Francisco stuff, which I ate up as a San Francisco local myself. The Muni bus fight might be, honest to God, without any hyperbole, my favorite action scene in the MCU. Honestly, like, probably because I've been to San Francisco many times. I've ridden those buses. I've been down those streets. And so, I mean, every action scene in this movie is great. Every beat in this movie is great. I just feel like some of the connective tissue is a little bit wonky. Let's see. John Kelling also says, I kind of agree with this. Biggest issue I had character-wise is that Shang-Chi himself doesn't have enough fights to showcase his title of the Master of Kung Fu. I think Shang-Chi has plenty of fights. I actually think the problem is that he doesn't really, like... It is one of those, like, I feel like it's kind of like the opposite problem of most MCU movies, where I do agree. I like the performance a lot. I really do. I'm not poo-pooing the performance at all. That being said, it is understated, and it's written to be understated, and he's written around, like, much more colorful characters. So I can see how people can, view him as bland, but I don't think he's bland at all. I think he's I honestly think he's one of the more realistic MCU heroes, just as far as kind of like being an average guy who happens to have like a dark past. But yeah, I mean, Act 3, like, it might not be as cool as like some of the action that led up to it. But one thing I will say about Act 3 was that, my God, I want a live action Dragon Ball movie in that style, because that's what I was thinking all throughout the climax, was like, this is like basically the closest that we've gotten to like good live action Dragon Ball action. Okay. So to say, I'm really high on it. I think the comedy in this movie is, honestly elevated from some MCU movies. I've seen the Awkwafina character have mixed reactions. I'm honestly kind of curious how Dragon feels about it. I personally think Katie is one of the best MCU comic relief characters they've ever done. She just absolutely won my heart. This is coming from someone who didn't really care for Awkwafina and Raya and the Last Dragon, but here's the thing, guys, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, and then I'll pass the buck to Dragon. I'm a big component and big champion for writing platonic male-female relationships in films. I really don't think it gets done nearly enough. And granted, I absolutely think there is chemistry there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are a couple going forward, and I wouldn't be against it. But having this whole movie and having Awkwafina and Shang-Chi just on that basis of long-term friends, so freaking refreshing to me. I think Awkwafina's comedy is like more real and more improvised than a lot of other MCU stuff. And lastly, I will say this. The Hotel California running gag is one of my favorite running gags in all of the MCU. Because, like, first of all, it feels like such a classic, like, running joke with your friends that it feels like a running joke that people would have. And I just think the Hotel California stuff was inserted in just the right places. It was inserted as character building in the first act. It was inserted as a, as kind of like a break in the tension and an action scene. And then it was inserted as basically like the final punchline of the movie. So, I mean, as far as like the rule of threes with comedy, MCU just nailed it. All right, Dragon, what do you think?
Yeah, so Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I think it turned out great. Aside from issues with Act 3, as I think we're all kind of dancing to that beat at the moment. We're all singing that tune at the karaoke bar, so to speak. Basically, I had issues with Act 3, and also it's kind of odd the movie does not necessarily live up to the film's namesake, with the Legend of the Ten Rings. Like, we really don't know anything about them. Not really. We think more on that later. But so aside from like those factors, the film had amazing action, had some truly solid performances, and was just a whole lot of fun. I mean, the expectation was there's a lot of expectation for me, coming for the fact that we're finally doing like the real Mandarin payoff, and of course, I think the analogy I had is like, come for the real Mandarin payoff, stay for Shang Chi.
Yeah,
sure, which I think ultimately it did. I think ultimately it kind of turned out that way for the best. I think it walked the line of, let's infuse the new Phase 4 blood into the MCU, and a measured amount of MCU laurels, of like your Wongs and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, this kind of instills some Eternals hope, but that film will not have any safety nets. So that's the thing to bear in mind. That film's not gonna have any safety nets like this film did. So I'm still a little, I don't know. That
Aren't you curious to see why they didn't step in to stop Thanos?
No, it doesn't exactly have like the appeal of like set up that whole real Mandarin thing. There was another guy,
right?
Versus like, hey, why didn't they, along with other people, not get involved with Thanos? But I gotta tell you, I mean, this is a good. This does bode better for Eternals. I mean, again, we'll see if it sticks the landing. But this movie's very good. I wouldn't go as high as you guys are going in terms of these rankings, but then again, I'm starting to more and more of all these rankings.
Dragon Winter Soldier is like number 12 for me. All right, like
yeah,
it's not even in my top 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking the more and more these movies come out now. By the point of like we're 20 plus into it with the MCU. I'm thinking the rankings are more and more just kind of arbitrary. Like, everyone's gonna have a different place they're gonna put their rankings. I don't even know if they're how much.
No, I mean that's absolutely fair. My ranking and your ranking, like I think that's honestly the cool thing about the MCU is that people can have like wildly different rankings and still kind of like respect each other's opinions. I'm just saying, like, the reason I do the rankings just because I kind of like to see like where it stands in like the broad spectrum. It's like as a standalone movie.
Yeah. Just to pipe in a bit in regards to the rankings, like I just quickly I have my MCU ranking that includes the shows. Oh, that's not including Loki, so that's going to probably affect it. Oh man, that's okay. Because the thing is, right, with excluding Loki, like Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings is like in the top 10, and with Loki, I don't know where to. Ooh, this is going to be tough. I would, God. See now the thing is the rankings are getting harder when I have to include the shows in. But I will say that Shang-Chi is definitely like certainly one of the better MCU films. And I think it'll have a lot more staying power. Especially once after the 45 days is over and then it gets on Disney Plus. I think I will not be surprised for like there to be a lot of replay value and a lot of like cultural cachet to just keep going, just as like Panther, there was just so much like Wakanda Forever and all that stuff. Like, I think Shang-Chi has that kind of potential, and if it doesn't like have that like in the theatrical run, I think once it gets on Disney Plus, like it's gonna keep on going further.
Sure. Okay, guys, I just want to point out you all are killing it in the comments, but I make no promises on being able to get to everyone at this point because you're you're going faster than I can handle.
Well, we do have the new super chat function.
I'll make a friendly reminder about that. I absolutely don't want to pressure anyone about the super chat, and
we'll read as many as we can. But if you want to guarantee, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, sure.
Because like honestly, we usually says, "Hey, look at me."
Right, because like we usually try and shout out everyone, but when we've got so much activity here, it's kind of hard. So, all right. So with that being said, Dragon, where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, my instinct would be the movie starts with the Mandarin. That's the main reason that's kind of my big thing going into it. So unless you guys want to start with Shang-Chi himself, I mean,
No, I think Tony Long is I've been thinking about this, and I really think he's very, very, very high up on MCU villain rankings.
I think he gave a tremendous performance. He killed it as the Mandarin. So
what I love about him is that I feel like his character, even though he's a warlord, like the way he's framed, it's like he's barely even a villain. John Kelling gave a $2 super chat. Read this. Thank you, John Kelling.
We read it.
All right.
I think for Wen Wu, a lot of what really makes him work is just how Tony Leung carries himself. He's very not unassuming, but he's very just sort of calm, collected. He's not sort of the typical villain that just is outwardly aggressive or just is a very showy. He just has such a presence, just like in terms of his attire. It's like very much you could see like a well-to-do Asian like dad wearing that kind of material, and he just sort of with his interactions with especially with Simu and like with his wife character, he really sells you on there being a sense of humanity in this character.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think he's the best MCU villain. I do think he's obviously not as powerful as Thanos and not as threatening as Thanos, but I just think that I just think it was just as far as just the narrative goes in the individual movie, I mean, I really don't think anyone tops him. I really think that his arc is just perfect all the way through.
I would not say perfect.
Okay. That's your opinion. That's fair. But
I was sorry. I was going to use this like a springboard, but
go ahead really quick. I want to shout out Donovan. He says, I love Shang's father. It was more complex writing with him than just wanting that thing he loved the most. In the end, when he surrendered the rings to his son, that got to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I do love what we did with the Mandarin here. I really do. But that said, again, I feel it's kind of the obvious thing to go to here. Act 3, I think, compromised a lot of the movie in many respects, and I feel as great as the Mandarin was, the plot stuff with him with Act 3, I think also really, again, while the end of that arc, I mean, it is rather moving. Getting there is
stuff.
What?
The gate stuff?
Yeah, the gate stuff really hurt, I thought.
Okay. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it just because I feel like as a plot, it's very easily digestible. Like, maybe I'm a little bit more into like the Chinese mysticism than you are, but I think it does kind of fit into Chinese mythology pretty well.
Well, no, that's not the problem at all, Tiki. The problem is that so you have this character. He's very, you take this smart and kind of ruthless and just a guy he's been around. He knows stuff. Presumably, as we've established, we've built up a lot of credibility with the Mandarin, and yet we have him essentially chasing Ghost. And it seems like I'm going to keep pounding at this gate because I hear, I hear the voice of my wife calling for my help, and he's just not picking up on the fact of, hey, these giant soul eater dweller in darkness things are flying out. This doesn't seem to be working. That's what I'm saying. That's what hurts me.
So basically, he should have realized the error of his ways sooner.
And at the very least, even if you want to go, I'm not even necessarily poo-pooing that idea of he wants to get something on the other side. Here's the problem. Here's why it bothers me is that I wish we spelled out a little bit more that the issue is I can bring my wife back by getting to the other side of this thing, but the thing he just keeps saying like a mental patient is, she's still alive. No, she isn't. We saw her die.
Yeah, that's a
Very
fair
clearly.
point. That's a fair
If they
point.
clarify
Yeah.
that, or maybe like emphasize, I don't know. I know this is not necessarily the same thing, but it's the namesake, like the Valley of Spirits. That's where he found the rings, technically. So if you know, if you like correlate it somehow, so it doesn't seem like, man, he is really not picking up on. He's like really gullible. Everyone's like, no, listen, she's dead. This thing, there's a giant monster behind it. Don't punch this wall.
I think it's a really good metaphor for grief, and I think I think grief is at the heart of his character, and that's why I am willing to forgive it. But you do have.
I mean, to circle back to something positive with that, Tiki. I mean, your point standing though is that I love the idea that he was this warlord who then stopped all of his Ten Rings activities once he had a family. Until she died, there was a ceasefire. He didn't really have any motivation to do that stuff anymore. She changed his ways. I mean, that's great. That's the dimension I really love with this guy. And basically, what we kind of did with the Mandarin, which I really love, I never would have expected, is that we kind of made him Ra's. We did a Ra's al Ghul thing with him.
Sure.
I wish we leaned a little bit more versus like I gotta pound that gate. That's what I'm saying. We hit.
I was really. I'm sorry, Rohith. Go on.
Yeah, I think to respond to Blue Dragon's point, I think the best, if not argument, the best sort of my response would be that Wen Wu, in just terms of his characterization, I think is just an individual like Thanos who's just one-minded. Like, we know how people bring up all the criticisms and complaints of like, oh, Thanos' like plan to, erase half the universe doesn't make sense logically. He should like think through and all that stuff. I think with Thanos and both of Wen Wu, like what makes them compelling, but also like villainous, is that they're just single-minded individuals that don't really take into account other people's feelings or other information, and that's sort of a realistic trait, in a lot of real life warlords, that there are individuals that can amass like great armies, can inflict terror, but a sort of weakness of them is that they can be single-minded to a fault and can sometimes not take information that's contrary to their like core beliefs. So I think for Wen Wu, for doing that, like in him being so stubborn and just hitting the gatekeep, I think that's just reflective of a mentality that he's done things a certain way, and his convictions is what guides him, whether through power and through love. And the way he pursues about it is just that single-mindedness. And he just disregards other people's, interference away from his particular goals.
Okay, that's also Don Beast makes a good point here. He says, to be fair, the Mandarin is pretty much, he's gone completely crazed after his spiritual balance is compromised. I mean, that's an interesting way of looking at it too. But let me ask you guys this. So this is something I kind of was thinking about once the movie ended, after I kind of processed everything. Was that, back to my point with the title of my thesis, is that the Legend of the Ten Rings is something that we really all we really do is like we have the closest thing we have to the Legend of the Ten Rings is kind of like the meet cute bedtime story that we start the movie off with, which is good, but it's not quite like the Legend of the Ten Rings in kind of title. Like, how does this really get formed? I mean, like the most of that legend is with a little bit of that warlord flashback.
Okay, this is going to sound like a really weird comparison, but what the intro reminded me of, like a much better version of this?
What?
Spy Kids.
Little bit, it's not bad.
Because it's like, it's like almost like the fairy tale of how the mom and the dad meet, and it's kind of like a bedtime story. It's a way better version of Spy Kids, but
I mean, honestly, and look, I don't want to be one of those guys like the movie should have been this, but it's just sort of this thing that occurs to me that I think. Take the movie that we have and we just streamline it, and we could have basically done everything. We just would have kind of made some of that a little more clear and a little less convoluted in the third act. Where
also, to add on to what you're saying, I think a way to address sort of the thing about the Legend of the Ten Rings, add in something about like that the Ten Rings can have like an effect on the user that like after using them for a long while they start to go insane, and because that addresses your issue about the Ten not being sort of hyped up, and also it makes Wen Wu an even more tragic character, where he's gone through a tragic moment, and these rings just sort of like the Pym particles for Hank that and or the tentacles for Dr. Octavius and Spider-Man 2, they're just having a corrosive effect on his mental health and just making him do even more and more things that he wouldn't have done without his loved one and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea, Rohit. But yeah. So anyway, so basically what I'm laying is plot wise for the film overall, I guess, would be simply like, okay, core of the story, at least for the first two acts, really seems to be, and basically once we kind of do the big sacrificial moment at the end, is it's a father son reconciliation story. Like it's the father and son being in each other's lives again. So I'm thinking, what if what if basically the movie was, we have that reconciliation, we learn about the 10 rings and that whole story, and basically the goal, instead of like let's bring the mother back, is this it's the goal of I'm going to unleash Fin Fang Foom from the other side of this thing. I'm going to use these rings to unleash Fin Fang Foom and control them, basically change out the one dragon for the better dragon. I just feel that maybe would have kind of undone some of this kind of convoluted, like we're not quite sure what's happening at the end, and we're trying to stop the.
I mean, Dragon, this is all a fair point, but I do feel like you're kind of playing like what I wanted the movie to be versus what the movie is. So
I mean, it just kind of occurs to me that would have been like, I mean, overall though, don't you think like instead of like a lot of the CG stuff in Act 3, we could have just had the father son fighting with the rings? You think?
Look, I honestly think I'm fine with both. Like I honestly think the CG stuff in Act 3. I said it myself. I think the dragon stuff is really cool. It's very Dragon Ball-esque. Like I was honestly kind of digging it from a fantasy point of view.
I think the only criticism for me that I have with the third act stuff is that like MCU always does this, not always, but like there is always this color grading thing that makes a lot of black, that makes sort of a lot of flat blacks, and the colors that really should pop out aren't as bright as it should be. So that's sort of my criticism of the third act. It's just like the color saturation maybe could be a little bit more amplified. But I think for me the third act, like I'm gonna mention my thesis. So it's like this. Yes, there's a CGI fight, but it's all these like images that are unique to the MCU, and you need to really westernize it, right, with Wushu mythology. And so for me, it's sort of like, oh, this is sort of a unique,
I'll say this: it feels a lot cooler than the Black Panther fight, which ultimately, like, I feel serves a very similar narrative purpose. Those, the creatures in this, in this. I'm sorry, yeah, my memory. Shit, Dragon. What's the name of the village?
Talo.
Talo, yeah.
Talo? Is it? Yeah.
The creatures, to me, are like so much cooler than like, hey, we got bigger rhinos, everybody. Bigger rhinos. It's like, I don't know. Just like, I feel like with Black Panther, that finale, like people do legitimately criticize that finale for just kind of like even the Black Panther versus Killmonger stuff is a bit of a CG fest. But this, like you said, it's just like, yeah, it is CG, but it's really interesting creatures and mythology.
Right. All right, let's see.
LED, the score for me, it did feel a little bit understated. I will agree. LEB, I will insult that. I am not a fan of the War Rhinos. I'm sorry.
I am a fan. I am a fan though of Maurice or Morris.
Morris.
God, if they
Monkey is a big advocate for him being a walk around Avengers campus.
Oh, I love that. I want a plush toy of Morris. It's God. Disney's gonna make a fortune with the amount of creature plush toys that they have alongside Baby Yoda and Baby Groot.
Okay, so I'm sorry, LEP. I don't know what to tell you. I just
crushing
think
the poor
rhinos.
Dreams. How dare you?
I just think they're big rhinos. I don't think it's that creative of a.
I don't know what your problem with the rhinos is. I mean, there's a vibranium armored rhinos. It's kind of cool.
It's just that they're not really unique creatures. They're just big rhinos.
What do you got? What more do you want? I mean,
this movie is what more that I want.
Well, again, you can't put Chinese mythology into
I mean,
Wakanda.
you can bring in African mythology.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we're sort of belaboring the point, at least for me.
We are.
Yeah, but I will. What I do like is I like speaking of Tal. I think someone mentioned Talo. Like the village and the production design and the costuming is fantastic.
I want this as a Disneyland really badly. I will gladly take this as like an IP land in a Disney park.
can you imagine if Epcot did like a whole like just a Marvel theme where it's globally Marvel all locations?
Oh, we could brainstorm that, my friend. I'm sure we could make that work.
Right. Anyway,
Anyways,
but I actually heard there was kind of a Shang-Chi conversation I was a part of briefly yesterday, and it was something really interesting was mentioned that in comparing the finale of Black Panther to the finale, it's just with the location, it's with the setting, and that the interesting thing is that the ultimate thing with Black Panther is that obviously in that same year we do Infinity War, which obviously is the better use of Wakanda as a battlefield, clearly, but that said, is looking at what we have there. I mean, until we have like the mano a mano kind of Killmonger and T'Challa fight, which has an amazing ending, much like kind of the fight here. We have a really good resolution of things.
sure.
The difference is, I think we connect more. Wakanda is a much more built and established location where Ta Lo is kind of it's talked up, and we have to get there, but like, we're not there long enough to forge the connections like all the people who.
I just here's the thing with Ta Lo though is like I feel like just as a theme park environment. Ta Lo is a lot more comprehensible. Like you could literally recreate Ta Lo pretty much brick by brick in the theme park. You can't really do that with Wakanda. So that's all I'm saying. Like, Wakanda is definitely obviously a lot better world building for sure. Like that world building is easily the best part of the movie of Black Panther. But, I'm just saying as a theme park nerd, I love the tangibility of Ta Lo.
Sure. All right, let's see. Okay, so maybe moving from do you want to stick in Ta Lo or you want to maybe go to San Francisco?
Let's go to San Francisco.
All right, so let's just start. Let's say Shang-Chi just first off. Great protagonist. I love the dichotomy of you know him as this mild-mannered kind of everyman in our world, in San Francisco, and he's just this nice, humble guy who, of course, on the flip side, is distancing himself from his demons, aka his father, and he's been through a lot. He's been through some loss. He's been through like a lot of harsh training to basically make him the master of kung fu, as it were. And he's really again a really compelling character, I thought.
Yeah, I'd say what's interesting about Shang-Chi, just like after watching the movie, him and Xialing have a lot of parallels to Gamora and Nebula.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And I think that's just sort of an interesting place to sort of focus the movie on a guy who's very unassuming and relatable. He goes to the karaoke, and he seems like a guy you would just like to hang out with.
Yeah.
But like at the age of 14, he murdered a legit guy.
I love that twist, by the way. That was a great twist.
That is a great twist. I am bothered we did not see it, though.
I mean, do you really expect Marvel to show a 14-year-old murdering someone?
I mean, look, I'm not saying you go like killing a guy with a car door to that degree with it. I'm just saying, at least we indicate that there's the guy, he's got the blade, and then cut away from him. We know what happened. I don't know. I want to see the kid in the aftermath.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
I just want to see him in the aftermath of the action that's going to motivate him to leave. That's all I want. But it was a great team. And again, I'm pretty sure it's the story of Shang-Chi. I forget if he actually went through the deed or not, but it was like he was put in the position of he had to find out his father was a terrible person.
Let's see who killed his mom. Well, that is a mystery.
The Iron Gang. The leader of the Iron Gang, I guess.
Okay, well, you guys know more than I do, obviously. But what I do love about the who killed his mom thing, though, is I mean, I 90% side with Shang-Chi on the whole, he was just a kid. Of course, there was nothing to do to save his mother. But, I do see I'm not saying I agree with the perspective, but I do see the perspective of the father of, you stood by and did nothing. You literally watched it happen.
I like
that there's an ambiguity there.
I think that speaks to Wenwu just being a very, like how Ra's al Ghul is in certain iterations. He's a very like old school patriarchal, like
Yeah.
optimistic individual because you like and the way he raised both him and Xialing. Like Xialing has to learn everything on her own, whereas her brother gets a special treatment because in Wenwu's eyes, like the son is sort of the inherent successor to be the protector and caretaker of the family, and him not defending his mother, as any man should defend like a woman's honor or whatever, like that was a disgrace in his eyes, and that's what forces him to like harden enough and like make him a cold-hearted assassin.
Yeah,
Totally.
I love how kind of crazy it also. I mean, it just shows you like how kind of it shows you the hangups of Wenwu and also kind of some of the bigotry that we explore and kind of how he's kind of steeped in kind of certain patterns. Like we explored the whole how he kind of views American culture and how they've kind of taken the name the Mandarin and kind of like he's a guy who's not really he's been named many things throughout history. I believe Genghis Khan being one of them, and of course the Mandarin, which again they view as like like was an assistant to the king or something.
No, he's just like they just like it's like they made a terrorist caricature out of him and named him after an orange.
Yeah,
No, I know that.
The Mandarin, it's like I thought what they were implying, and I could be wrong about this, but I thought what they were implying was that like the only thing that Slattery took from him was the 10 rings thing, and the name of the Mandarin was never a name that he actually went by.
Well, what I'm saying, guys, Mandarin means two things. One of them is the orange thing, what he's using just as a point of comparison for the gag of like he just shows you how little he never cared for the name. Period. Hence, he's using the orange version. I'm saying the other version of it, which is what Killian came up with the whole Mandarin ruse for, is like.
Oh right, yeah. I honestly I don't know off the
like
top of my head. Yeah.
Regardless. But you're right, though, and that's one of the great things we do have with this Mandarin, that we were able to have her cake and eat it too, or have her orange in this case, I guess. We were able to, we have like the the manufactured war angle with the Slattery Mandarin. We have the more layered version here with Mandarin like the man himself. And what I'm getting at is I love that he's kind of we see him like we had that great scene between him and he directs us something to Katie, I believe, and he says, "What?"
He calls her American Girl.
Yeah, exactly, American Girl, and then I love that. That's the thing where he calls her American Girl, but he also makes the point of like, why don't you use your actual name? Like your actual name pays tribute to your ancestors and your family and such, So that holds. Again, I just love that he's very much steeped in those ways. And by that same token, it's like he blames a 7-year-old for not. And this is before he learned how to fight. He blames a 7-year-old for not saving his mother against the Iron Gang.
But also going back to that conversation, like him saying American Girl and like criticizing Katie for not using her like given Chinese name is also a slight against Shang-Chi because he like has lived 10 years as like an as like sort of an Americanized like Chinese guy named Sean.
Yeah,
and so I think that's definitely sort of the like that's just sort of the layers of Wenwu, where like he'll say one thing to one person, but it also can be applied to whoever's nearby.
Yeah, and I love that in the face of that perceived weakness, he trained him into a living weapon out of that's the Mandarin's version of grief. I'm gonna make sure. It's kind of interesting looking at this take on the Mandarin. Now we finally have and seeing that there are some. Again, these are not like completely direct parallels, but just kind of incidental parallels to Tony Stark, given the fact kind of the history they share. Even though we already gave Tony Stark his Mandarin in Iron Man 3, I just love the fact that it's less. He turns people into living weapons, and he has his own kind of like kind of family, his own father-son story going on, like Tony and Howard Stark have. So I kind of like somewhat of those parallels that are going on there. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm really trying with the comments, but you guys are really killing it.
John Kelly knows a girl named Lemon, but she isn't even a superhero.
Let's see. I wonder if going forward, Marvel will make the 10 Rings organization more prominent. I think it was a really interesting distinction that.
What?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I thought it was a really interesting distinction that at the end of the credits, it didn't say Shang-Chi will return. It said the 10 Rings will return.
I have a theory about that.
Well, my theory is that it's going to be a Disney Plus show.
That was not my theory, but that's a cool idea, though.
I think a Disney Plus show would really work because you have characters like Razor Fist, John. Of course, Shang-Chi himself can show up from time to time. Can we just talk about John? I love John. He's a really great like one scene comedic relief.
He was a fun part of the whole Fight Club thing was just hilarious.
I just feel like his presence in the movie, like based on him in the trailers, I was expecting him to be like, like the third friend that tags along for the whole ride. But I honestly think he kind of works better as just like this one-off kind of like super quirky, super memorable personality. Really kind of like sets the tone for the sister side of things. I don't know. I really liked his role a lot, in spite of how little screen time he had.
You know why it worked so well?
Hmm.
He had been on a show with the actor who plays Shang-Chi, from what I heard. I heard he's on Kim's Convenience.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know how many people. I heard a couple people in the movie are from Kim's Convenience, which the Shang-Chi actor is from. So yeah, it's yeah. I don't watch it. That's what I heard. Like a buddy of mine had seen it, and he was going to hype me up for the movie before the credits rolled. Yeah, before the thing started. But honestly, here's the thing, Tiki. I don't think you're far off with the Disney Plus thing. I think it's going to be a little different, though. I mean, if they do a 10-ring show, that could be cool. I won't poo-poo that. But I think we have two shows that the 10 rings could very easily show up in. Armor Wars and the Riri Williams.
Show. Yeah, Armor Wars for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Either Ironheart or Armor Wars. I think that'd be a way of doing kind of. Plus, with the new Mandarin, the new Iron Man, or new Iron, you know what I mean, like new Iron Man figures in either or, whether it be Rhodey or whether it be Riri Williams with the new next gen Mandarin.
Oh, totally. I was also thinking that I could very much imagine see the 10 rings show up in Moon Knight. Because Moon Knight like was a mercenary and like he had some like done some jobs with 10 rings or encountered them,
I feel like the 10 rings is like the MCU doing the hand right. Like this is exactly what the hand should have been.
I have one. This is a nitpick. I think it's kind of like they didn't say it, which kind of bothers me. But I think it's pretty implied. I've been waiting for this movie just to say like, okay, we never got with the other one, so for Iron Man 3, because I'm assuming that did not happen with our fake 10 rings, Mandarin kind of operation there, but now we got the real one. Did they kidnap Tony Stark? Did a cell of the actual 10 rings?
Yeah. So let's see. We have someone brought that up in the comments. So let me pull that up. Again, guys, you guys are rocking in the comments, but it's kind of hard to keep track. So
well, if we do the time, because I think I can try to do the timeline thing in my because Shang-Chi, he wears a high school like a t-shirt like and the back end it's like class of 2017. So if he graduates high school in 2017, he's like 18 years old, and so minus like 4 years, 3. Yeah, because the thing is, it's like, how old is he when like his mom dies, and then from there 7. So
yeah, John Kelling says that Shang-Chi's mother was killed, and then the following year in the timeline, Tony Stark is abducted in Afghanistan.
Yeah, because remember, after the mother's killed, that's when the Mandarin resumes his criminal
activity. I mean, that would make sense. I'm just, can either of you confirm that that's factually like in the timeline?
I think running the numbers, I'm inclined to believe that the actual like there's like a cell, like as in he didn't literally like say do this to Tony Stark, but like down the chain of like, okay, well, I want you to acquire the Jericho weapon by any means, and they kidnap Tony Stark to do that. So like, here's a headcanon. This thing is not at all confirmed, but I like to think, because now again, they had no idea they were going to do like the rings as armbands or anything down the line. They had no idea how they were going to do the Mandarin back in 2008. But I like to think, because the leader of Raza, I believe, whatever his name was, he had like a little ring. I like to think that the leader of the cells of the 10, probably 10 cells, they each get a ring that's like the traditional Mandarin, so they each kind of have like a little ring.
Nice.
So I like to think it's my headcanon again. No, but I'm inclined, because here's the thing: the reason I'm pretty sure that Killing did not do it is that you would have thought that's something worth bringing up at least once in that movie. That yeah, Tony, I had you captured in that first Iron Man movie.
Yeah, right.
You would have thought. So that's kind of my proof of the pudding of like, no, it couldn't possibly be Killian who did that.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I just wish there wasn't like all this speculation. I wish we could have just said it once and for all. Like, yeah, he did it.
Honestly, like I will not be surprised if for What If Season 2, there is an episode where it's like, what if Tony Stark fought the real Mandarin?
Ooh,
Ooh, yeah, for
nice.
sure.
And we get Tony Lung back, maybe.
I mean, we do have that Killmonger episode where Killmonger saves him, so
Yeah, I'm
we
looking
don't
very
know
forward
where
to
that could go.
That's a good point, Tiki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to just kind of circle back around to some of the characters.
Yeah.
Let's talk Katie, guys.
Yes.
What do y'all think of Katie?
I thought Aquafina did a great job. She could have very easily been the annoying sidekick, and I don't think she was.
I feel like she wrote a line and she wrote it well.
Speaking of writing lines and everything, I think the biggest quiver, well, also with the archery thing, the biggest quiver in the movie's arsenal was that bus scene. The bus scene is very much
The bus scene. Like I said, it's probably my favorite action scene in the MCU now.
It's very much
is.
For this movie, it was the MVP insurance of, okay, we're going to be taking risk in this movie, but this is like, if anyone questions this, we'll just show them this scene and we'll be fine. And you're right, and I think that helped really big time with Katie's character, in that she had a very proactive, really helpful role in that sequence. She was driving the bus. We set up that she was a really kind of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, reckless valet driver.
I love that John was excited about her just being the driver.
Yeah, and I love that.
In the driver!
Bus boy, in the driver! That's what I'm saying. Like
Agent Jeff Gordon.
Yeah. I don't know who that is. Just showing you how young she is. But yeah,
I dug. Honestly, one of my favorite scenes in the whole film is like that tiny little scene of Katie's family, just because it does so much and so little with the Chinese culture.
And with that, it really kind of sets up Shang-Chi's relationship with his family versus like the average family. Yeah, I think she also really works as an audience POV character. I think it's why she
absolutely
she did.
Absolutely,
we used her really well on that front.
Not only just an audience POV, but she's also like someone that, I mean, she's there for Shang-Chi to explain all the mythology and like the 10 rings and all that stuff. But like she's specifically like someone in her like mid to late 20s or even early 30s that's like, living with their parents and, just working a valet job.
Although I can relate to that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that's sort of what makes her like so endearing, is that like they're
totally.
Yeah. And
I know a lot about the culture in Chinatown, and those people live in like very cramped apartments. And here's a fun fact with Chinatown: there's no street level apartments in Chinatown. They're all above the businesses. So it's like, with Chinatown families, like you really have that, that communal, like, like the number of people living together in a small space. So I really thought that one scene just was very authentic in that way. And how, what?
To add on to it, the neatest detail I really appreciate as like an Asian American, is like Shang-Chi taking out his shoes before entering into Katie's home.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, everything about, like, I wish there was more San Francisco stuff, but I'm just biased because I'm a local. But all the San Francisco stuff we did get was great.
I'll tell you one thing that did occur to me, and I knew this wasn't going to happen. It kind of occurred to me in the theater while I was just having
Ant-Man.
time. Yeah, that's what the
I think if we get a Shang-Chi sequel, they got to do an Ant-Man crossover.
They have to, because again, they're locals. It's like the New York thing with all the heroes. Like,
or if there's like an Ant-Man, or if like there's more Ant-Man movies past Quantumania, like have Shang-Chi there. Maybe
I would like to see Shang-Chi in Quantumania. I don't want to get my hopes up though.
Well, no, I was thinking more so that like after, if there's more movies after, I would love for Shang-Chi to come in and like be Scott's like martial arts instructor and just
totally
better fighter.
Yep, that'd be great.
Oh man,
of course. So with the bus scene again, just I adore one, just the fact that we're fighting Razorfist in the 10 rings, and we're doing it on this downhill terrain of this careening bus.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah.
The reason I love it, though, is the fact that Shang-Chi, especially towards the end of the scene, just saving people, like dipping out of the bus, but when it's over, he's like, yeah, look at that.
And the vlogger is just, guys,
Clev.
like,
His name's Clive.
That and the Captain America gag, or not the Captain America gag. I'm sorry, the Hotel California gag. But it was probably my biggest laugh in the movie, and I think it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, Donovan says Ant-Man was so tiny, I didn't see him. Yeah, see, Ant-Man secretly, people don't know this. Secretly, Ant-Man is in this movie, and also the first Venom movie. But no one saw it.
Alternate universe, and the
Ant-Man's also in Vertigo.
Yeah,
it's the Frisco verse.
God.
Ant-Man just shows up in a Monk episode.
Yeah.
Oh
God! Michael Douglas is thought to be the killer, and Scott.
Young Paul Rudd shows up in Full House.
What do you mean, young Paul Rudd? Paul Rudd doesn't age, Tiki.
Yeah. Well, kid Paul Rudd. All right. Anyways.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Also, I fully concur, by the way, with the whole the platonic thing. But also, I could root for these two crazy kids.
I could too. Don't get me wrong. I'm just glad we got a full movie where we developed them as friends instead of romantic interests.
At the end though, it seems like there's a spark at the end. It's just
there's a spark, but I'm glad we don't have a full blown you and me. Let's go out. Let's have that big kiss.
Because we talked about it recently. Again, Christine Palmer's done a lot of good for the MC with the platonic kind of relationship thing. I think a lot of goods come from Doctor Strange on that front. But yeah, our set pieces have been extraordinary in the film, though. We go from the bus, we go to the fighting ring, and
here's the thing, Dragon, that usually with MCU, for me, the action is kind of just like, all right, and they fight. Yeah,
fight. on my fighty fight parade.
But this is, every action scene to me sticks out so much.
I think why they stick out so much, Tiki, is because Simu Liu, before he wasn't like a full-fledged actor, he's a stuntman.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so that I think Sarah Haley Finn, and by extension Kevin Feige, and probably the director Daniel Destin Cretton really were lucky to get Simu Liu, who can do the stunts. And so because the thing is, like, for a lot of actors, that aren't as proficient or don't have the background in martial arts, we kind of have to make a lot of cuts in the action. And so with this, like, you can, like, there's not that many cuts in like the action sequences. You can see like Simu Liu put, obviously there's still some stunt work. He's not actually fighting, but
he's not actually like leaning out of the bus and grabbing people and leaning back in.
Yeah, no, and the way he moves, he clearly has like a sense of like fluidity to his like stunt work that very few actors in like action movies that are not specifically like Hong Kong or Chinese like action like martial arts movies has. And so I think like it's really I think his athleticism and just the way he moves about like in every action scene really elevates it to a whole another level.
Totally. That you're absolutely right about that with the acting and the casting. But I think another thing is, I just think the ideas for the set pieces are just really inspired. The bus is a great one, but I think arguably like not quite as strong as the bus, but almost as good as the fight on the scaffolding.
Yeah, the bamboo fight is amazing.
Yeah, and then not only that, but then we get that fight. That's kind of like the almost kind of like the callback to something like like Old Boy, where it's like that that single take with the one shot, and then you got the neon sign in the background.
Really, it's like that's I think credit should be given to sort of the cinematographer Bill Pope.
Totally.
For Spider-Man 2, The Matrix, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, and you can really feel the influence from those movies onto this movie. Really, it sticks out. It's a lot more. It's a lot more visually engaging than a lot of other MCU action.
Yeah. But also, the set pieces are definitely very much inspired by like Jackie Chan movies, especially like the
totally.
Yeah, like the scaffolding is very classic.
Rush Hour.
Yeah.
I think technically Rush Hour 2.
Yes. I love the little Hotel California bit with Aquafina there.
Yeah. Basically, she sings to distract the opponents because she cannot really fight.
Let's see.
Also, I mean, the fighting ring, Tiki. I mean, that's pretty,
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Fight Club. If there was one thing I was disappointed in, it's the fact that Wong he's not really in the movie.
Well, we bring him back really nicely.
We do, but
and we set him up and we pay him off.
Okay, here's the funny thing. So with the spider, I'm just in case anyone's avoiding the Spider-Man Far From Home trade. No Way Home. Don't blame me, blame the fact that the titles are so similar. I'm just going to put up this spoiler tag if anyone doesn't want to hear about the No Way Home trailer. This is basically just for Monkey if he's watching, so mute this until you don't see the spoiler tag anymore. But with Wong, when we saw him in the No Way Home trailer, and we're like, oh boy, he's going off from that movie into the Shang Chi movie. Well, it's kind of interesting, like, in this movie, I kind of feel like Wong almost pulled the exact same thing, where it's like, hey, y'all, I'm going to make a quick little cameo and then go off on my own little side adventure with the Abomination. What am I doing with the Abomination? I don't know. I wasn't expecting to get, like, a big character arc with Abomination or anything, but I do think that it's weird that they just kind of... that Wong and him are just buddy with each other, and we didn't really get an explanation.
It's like a fighting. It's a wrestling thing almost.
I just realized something.
What?
So with the Underground Fighting Club,
Yeah.
you know how like She-Hulk's like one of her big nemesis is Titania, like who's like a wrestler and all that stuff.
Yeah, who's going to be in the She-Hulk show? Yeah.
So I think, and with the Abomination showing with She-Hulk, like I think the Underground Fight Club is something that we're going to see more of, like like some of the villains, like from She-Hulk, being prominent members of that Fight Club.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna point out some comments here. Let's see. We have John Kelly. Death Dealer just comes in, fights, and dies.
Okay, we should talk about Death Dealer for a bit here.
I think Death Dealer had, like, people are saying they want more screen time with him. I think he had just the perfect. He to me is a good example of like a cool Boba Fett-esque character that doesn't need much screen time to stand out for me.
So we're gonna get the Book of Death Dealer.
I would be against it.
I mean, to see if they did like a prequel about what he did for the 10 Rings over the years.
Yeah. Oh God.
Only to be taken out like hey, you got sucked by the Soul Stealer. Oh.
Okay.
But
also, really quick. I just want to point this out because I did see this on Twitter and I think it's hilarious. Did you guys see this?
No.
Simu Liu is he was a stock photo model and his pics are viral now. And it is legitimately pretty damn funny, honestly, because it's just like the most generic, like, hey guys, I'm your average day young adult corporate guy in a business setting.
Which is funny because like Simu actually was like he was an accountant at like yeah. So that I feel like there's how like the Raimi memes just like are now a thing.
Sure,
interesting. Just like an entire community that takes the stock photos.
Oh God,
make like it's like Simu Liu working in corporate America.
But I mean, I think definitely in a lot of ways that makes him like all the more relatable, though, right?
So back to Death Dealer for a second.
Yes.
Death Dealer, again, very much. I mean, the simplest way you can put it is Asian Taskmaster, which I mean, to Donovan's point, Death Dealer.
No, I think he's way better than Taskmaster, dude.
I'm just saying that's the shorthand, which I don't necessarily think is apt, but I'm just saying shorthand because also the ironic thing is he's in the same color scheme as Taskmaster, which is with the orange, the blue, and the white. But I'm just saying in terms of they're trainers. I mean, they're predominantly in this case silent characters, but I mean it's the whole trainer aspect.
I mean, I think the implications of him are like honestly even scarier than what we actually see of him, and I think that works.
So that's what I'm saying. In that regard, if people just use like the Asian Taskmaster shorthand, I'd say we did a better Taskmaster here than we did the other one.
Think so. It's hard to get much worse than that.
That's my point. The fact that even though the Taskmaster he's not forbidden to speak, we never need to remove the mask. That's the difference. But the point being, we had a nice setup, and we had we set up like the kind of the abuse with the training, and then we had the nice showdown in the middle of the movie, and then we did just kind of suck the soul out of there, which was kind of disappointing. It's like It's not been overstated. Welcome. It's about really. That's how we're going to take this guy out, just
Okay,
like Boba
you see,
Fett?
everyone's complaining about that, but I like it just as the sense of like it shows that the threat at the end means business because he just took out like the main
Yeah.
mini boss of the movie. It's like, oh crap, like
I-
he did that. Like he did that with no effort. Like
I will-
it raises the stakes.
I will agree with you. Just give now thinking about it, I'll agree with you in that. Well, it does motivate Razor Fist. Like we're not working with those guys. Death Dealer dead. Okay, we're
Well,
working with those
let's
guys.
talk about Razor Fist because I don't really think he stands. He has a lot of screen time. I just don't really think he has that much of a screen presence to him beyond just like the obvious like visual gag. What do you guys think?
Again, the irony was when Razor Fist was announced, it's like, why can't we have Iron Fist to go up against Razor Fist?
Oh my
Why
god!
could we not have ever had that?
By the way, I would genuinely pay to see like a candid interview of Finn Jones about his reaction to like how much Iron Fist pales in comparison to this.
Yeah, well, the thing I heard about this, I took this to be true, but I don't know 100%. Is that I heard they did honest trailers. The other thing on Iron Fist when Shang Chi came out,
I did see that. I saw their commentary as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the video itself, they mentioned the whole like Finn basically being attested to by stunt coordinators that he just didn't want to do the stunts. Or the point is he really kind of cheaped out. Like that's why they shot Iron Fist the way they did, with like all these kind of far away shots. That's why we don't have like any of the wonders per se with Iron Fist. From what I understand, though, like as they went by Defenders in season 2, they got the most out of them they could. It sounds like Defenders was the sweetest spot they got with the fight choreography with them. But point being, it's just saying like that's the thing. Like you compare that to that's when he's going to facepalm himself. It's like, oh look at how good that was.
I honestly feel genuinely bad for Finn Jones. I do. I'm just an empathetic
I've met him. He's a nice guy.
I'm just an empathetic guy like that, man. It's like when you stumble so hard, I can't help but feel bad for you on like a human level.
It can't be all his fault because he's a good actor.
Yeah,
The material was not there for him at all.
No, honestly, like I watched season 2 of Iron Fist, and it was a significant step up. And I had that showrunner been there from the start, I think Iron Fist would have. I mean, I think it would have, still had 2 seasons like Luke Cage, and maybe not gone 3 seasons of Jessica Jones and Daredevil, but I think it would have had a respectable run, and I think that, I'm hoping, I don't know if I really would want Finn Jones to come back, if they're one of the Netflix characters to come back, but if he does come back, I hope you just give him more opportunity to, really shine and have a little bit more of the classic Iron Fist in him, but
sure, give him the mask and give him better writing. There you go.
Also, I would like for Razor Fist. I would love eventually down the line, whether in a Disney Plus show or in a future Shang-Chi sequel, like he'll because we have like Dragon Scales, him comparing whether to take Dragon Scale blade or a vibranium blade.
That would be cool. Yeah, for sure.
So John Kelly makes an excellent point.
This is a really good point. Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Shang-Chi, I mean, I can speak for myself. I don't know about you guys, but of course. Again, before Eternals, like the least I've known about any of the MCU things going in.
It's funny. I actually did have a couple Shang-Chi comics as a kid that my grandparents bought me.
All I knew about Shang-Chi is the origin. That's all I got.
Yeah, like I didn't really know much. Like I only read through the comics a couple times. They were just a couple like jumbo-sized issues. I had a Howard the Duck one that I read a lot more, but but I was vaguely familiar with Shang-Chi, actually, even before the movie was announced. I kind of knew who he was. I knew who he was more than I knew who Iron Fist was, actually.
And the most I knew about him was the infamy of the whole Fu Manchu thing with the origin.
Yeah, right. I didn't know much, but I was mostly just familiar with the name and the look.
Yeah, but by the way, I love that with his look in the movie. I love that each of the outfits do reference like a Shang-Chi costume that he's had over the years. I thought that was really nice. So John Kelly says Death Dealer was in 4 issues in the comics and then he dies. So again, I will redact what I said. Tiki. It isn't really a problem at all.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. I didn't know that. That's good. Okay.
All right, so guys, I think we need to address maybe the most divisive element of the movie. Slattery.
Here's the thing. I got my wish, and we worked him in exactly how I liked him to be. He was the jester.
And then he stayed around too long, right?
It didn't bother me though. Honestly, I thought it was okay. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that saved it for me. Okay, the fact that he had a practical role with Morris, like he was the Morris Whisperer, and that helped him through the maze. Because of that maze, I think he was okay. And then basically by that point, when we kept cutting back, it was like, well, he's there and he hasn't been killed off, so I guess we'll check in with him.
I do like that they gave him because they genuinely do kind of forget that he's there for a good part of the battle, so they have that little check-in with him where he's like, "I'm just playing dead, mate."
Yeah, so I think I didn't have a problem with them keeping. I was kind of surprised. Oh, we're keeping him around for more of the movie. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. I kind of feel like Awkwafina almost kind of passes the comedy baton to him at that point.
Yeah, that kind of.
But she kind of fades a little bit more into the background.
Well, even less background. It's more like she then moves on to the archery thing.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. But yeah. I'm genuinely interested to see where they go with him from here because I don't think this is going to be the last we see of him.
Well, again,
he was with the 10 Rings, I think, at the end.
I thought he was with the Tao Lo.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. He is. Yeah.
I don't admit, Tiki, I really don't think he would go back to the 10 Rings after they
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
For at least 10 years.
All right, but I don't know. I just think it's interesting. If we do a Shang-Chi 2 when we go back to Ta Lo, I'd like to see a check-in with him because I do find kind of the rehabilitated villain to be a really interesting arc just in general.
We do owe him a large debt of gratitude because again, that whole Slattery thing allowed us the little wiggle room of hey folks, if you didn't like what we did with the Mandarin, just hang tight till Shang-Chi.
Totally,
okay?
Totally.
Just hang tight.
I've always been a champion of it being a great twist in Iron Man 3. Yeah. I don't necessarily like the Guy Pearce, I am the Mandarin thing. I don't like that. And I'm not a big fan of the third act of that movie, but I do genuinely love the reveal. Yeah. All right.
What, Rohith?
No, and the fact that he has a massive dragon tattoo.
Yeah,
right.
I'm still waiting for Fin Fang Foom. Darn
it! I mean, Blue Dragon. I mean, in light of the post-credit scene, I will not be surprised if the 10 Rings are beaconing for Fin Fang Foom.
I know that's the thing. So the 10. Let's talk about the 10 Rings for a second before we move on to the sister. Okay, so the 10 Rings, which of course I was very excited to get to finally. So we've made them armbands versus the traditional basically 10 rings, which I love. It was a practical choice because you would have been doing 10 Infinity Stones on a guy's hand, which we've kind of done that already. We don't need to do it again. I get that, and again we've serviced them before. We've seen a guy wearing the rings with Slattery. Now, I mean, as far as I can tell, and this is just me just trying to equivocate here, is the fact, it looks like it's 5 abilities that are split between 2 arms, which, I mean, that's cool. The whole immortality, the energies, the projectiles, some enhanced strength, and flight. So that's me guessing because they didn't make it official. I mean, that the point being, the fact that we gave him, we gave him these rings, which is how we amassed so much power back in the day, and we have the really cool tease with Wong and company that there's a beacon going out, which I figure is a 50-50 shot of what it's going to be. My hope, Fin Fang Foom. Mm-hmm. The other thing, which could still work, and this does track, just given they ask how old are the rings? How long has he had how old was your father? How long has he had the rings? Over thousands of years old, which would indicate the Eternals. So it could be the Eternals. Or Fin Fang Foom. That's the fifth.
Or it could be a beacon for God, I can't remember the name of the city in Iron Fist.
Oh, you mean Kunlun?
Kunlun, yeah.
I mean, I don't really. I didn't think about that. I don't see much of a correlation specifically to Iron Fist.
Well, because it could just be it could be that because in Iron Fist there's the 10 heavenly cities. So each ring could be from respective.
That's a good. I didn't know.
I like that. Yeah,
there was 10 cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because how Iron Fist has the tournament arc with the 10 cities.
Yeah,
that could be the next Shang-Chi movie where he sees the Iron Fist and gets involved in the tournament.
Okay, a tournament would be awesome for a Shang-Chi sequel.
Oh, it would be. Yeah,
You
totally.
know me, I'm a sucker. My favorite things in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are the World Martial Arts tournament. So I'd be very for it. And John Kelly makes a point that again elates my whole Fin Fang Foom desire here. The 10 rings are perfect size for a dragon. Is there would be a ring for the dragon, but the armbands. Anyway, so yeah, I like how they adapted, so all that worked out well. And again, hopefully, might bring back some Fin Fang Foom stuff. Anyway, also, should we talk about our guest stars within the ring scene as well?
Like who?
Well, we had Captain Marvel, and we had.
Oh
Bruce
yeah,
Banner.
absolutely,
The
yeah.
big thing to hit though, Bruce Banner no longer Smart Hulk.
That I was freaking out about that. Like in the theater, I was literally like, to my dad, like, "Oh my god, check! Is his arm messed up? Is his arm still messed up?
Yep.
Yeah, his arm's still messed up."
That will never be healed. Now, I wonder if they're going to go the route of the blood transfusion made him no longer Smart Hulk and put all that to Jennifer Walters to make her She-Hulk. I wonder if maybe that's the logic.
Honestly, that would probably be a good way because the thing is, like for She-Hulk, like trying to CGI both She-Hulk and the Hulk the Abomination,
yeah,
like a neat writing thing to have less of a burden in the CGI budget. Or, I mean, honestly, it would be interesting, I don't know if She-Hulk would ever go this far. Like, seed some elements, like, where, Bruce can just be in his human form and can be in his Hulk form. He can just go back and forth. And then seed some ideas for, like, the stuff in the Immortal Hulk run.
I'm not uber familiar with the Immortal Hulk run.
Oh, there's just a lot of like the green door below, and there's like a demon thing. I feel like John Ty, if he was here, he would definitely like get what I'm going for. But no, I honestly, it would be interesting to see because here's the thing, so I would be if like Bruce can like choose to transform into the Hulk back and forth, that could set the precedent for Red Hulk to appear.
Ooh,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, because if you go to the Underground Fighting Club, you know how there's like a scene where there's like a guy with like the Extremis.
There was an Extremis soldier and there was a Black Widow.
Yeah.
So you could it would not be out of the realm possibility for Thunderbolt Ross to look into this underground fighting ring and like take things like for certain fighters and mix it in with like some form of gamma radiation and become the Red Hulk.
That could be interesting for sure. I mean, that's the thing. I think it's a big thing we're waiting for with this. If we're ever going to do the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers or whatever we're going to call it, like how what that team is going to be built if we're finally going to do certain things like a Red Hulk. So yeah,
cool,
sure. All right,
okay,
let's Xialing.
Xialing, yeah. So I think maybe out of the characters, she's probably the one that for me, I like her character. I like the fact that she's got like that sister dynamic with Shang-Chi. I feel like as far as the political stuff goes with this movie, I love the representation. I think the representation is awesome. I'm not as much a fan of like how overt the girl boss stuff is, but you know what? It's a minor nitpick. I don't know. I just think they hit it like a little bit on the nose with her.
Here's the thing. I liked her. My buddy, one of my buddies I was seeing the movie with, he loved her. He's like, she was one of my favorite characters in the movie. He's like, really? It's like, yeah. Here's like, so I like that she's kind of in that Talia al Ghul mold, which you know me, I love Talia al Ghul, so I'm absolutely down for it. Honestly, there's only one moment I didn't like with it. It's a brief moment. It's like it's not like a deal breaker or anything. It's just the whole. That sucker punch I felt was like it was a little cliche. Like, oh, she's upset.
Well, you know what I didn't like about it is that it is something that people are criticizing the MCU for. Is like, okay, we got it. You know, like I get it, guys. Like, you know, like female characters can kick the asses of male characters. You know, like
I mean, the whole point is that we stopped that fight. I thought that.
Right. And look, I'm not trying to. I'm obviously not trying to say like, no, girls can't beat up guys. You know, like I'm obviously not trying to say that at all.
She went out of her way to beat him up. That's the difference.
Right.
It's the thing. Also, when I was doing the Shang-Chi conversation, this kind of correlates with her, is that the postcard thing doesn't make a lot of sense, but, you know, just kind of gets them there, I guess. So, you know, the whole, like, remember the manufactured, the Mandarin sent out, like, the fake, like, postcard from her, I need help.
Uh-huh.
That whole thing.
That was just kind of like it was such a small plot device.
Yeah.
I didn't really mind it.
Like I'm saying, it gets lost in the grand whole. It's just
Yeah,
thinking about it. I was like, that's basically that gets us to the fighting ring. So it's like, oh yeah, the postcard sent us there.
Mhm.
All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything major that we're. Oh, how did you? When we went to Talo, I think the ant came out of nowhere. I mean, she was fine. I just think she just came out of nowhere.
I kind of agree.
So we randomly have an ant now, and we're dealing with the
Yeah,
loss of a mother.
yeah.
with
I
that
wish
thing.
there was. I wish there would have been a little bit more character development with her. Her character didn't really stand out all that much.
It's like here's the thing.
Honestly, I kind of got more character development out of Katie's archery teacher, even though he has like barely any screen time.
I like that he had like a mini arc of like, go ahead.
He had a mini arc. Yeah. He's
Fun fact:
don't die.
the actor who plays the archery teacher played the landlord in Kung Fu Hustle. Which
Oh my god! Oh, I love Kung Fu Hustle. Oh god,
he has a poster of it in his living space.
Yeah.
nice. Oh my god, I did notice the poster. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Kung Fu Hustle is amazing.
Well, honestly, I see your point about the and. I just think Michelle Yao is such a iconic person in wushu and like Chinese.
Oh, totally. I'm glad
that's an
that she's
excellent
there. I
casting,
just
though. I
wish
got
the
nothing-
character
yeah.
would have sung a little bit more.
I just wish it did. Here, let me tell you something. So the movie, I like the flashback structure. Something that occurs to me is that again, a complaint's been lobbed against the movie that I don't know how I feel about it. Is that we kind of spin our wheels as we bridge Act 2 into Act 3. Is that we're spinning our wheels? Like, okay, so we got because the important thing is we need to train our guys so they're ready for Act 3.
Right.
Which I get, but also we have certain key flashbacks in that sequence, which are key and are good. I like them in the grand.
I really like them. I feel like if they were to go that route, I feel like it was kind of like a half measure. I really wish the rest of the movie would have had a more strong thorough line with that structure of the flashbacks.
See, I really want to watch the movie again to see how I feel about the flashback structure because I do like that story and being.
Well, I did watch it twice, and I can tell you that the flashbacks are basically just, like obviously we get the first one in at the beginning, and then they do just kind of like they don't really come back into the fold all that much. Like we get them here or there, but really it is kind of like.
But
I
that's
agree with
my
the
theory.
criticism is that it's basically just like two big chunks of flashbacks, like at the beginning and then towards the start of Act 3.
Yeah,
I wish we would have sprinkled them in a little bit more throughout the story.
Yeah, it feels like we get them like way too late. Where, for example,
right,
the Mandarin keeps saying, your mother's alive, and it's like, well, I know we keep saying that she's dead, but I didn't see the death, and then now we see that she's absolutely dead. So, okay,
right, yeah.
You wonder how honestly, and I think about it, like it would have been interesting where you start off with the the initial flashback and then have Wenwu meets his wife. And then you go to the next flashback where it's like just a still of like Shang-Chi's kid, like as a little kid seeing all the dead bodies, and then you go to the Marvel Q.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, kind of have like more of a mystery to it.
Yeah, because then it's just like it's like happy, beautiful Wushu, and then just ends with just complete bloodshed. And then you have the Marvel fanfare, and then you start with like Shang-Chi in like his regular life, and I think like. Then you sort of fill in the gaps later.
I absolutely think that there totally could have been a driving mystery in the way it really does kind of come down to editing, and I don't really like as awesome as the fight scenes are. I don't think editing is really this movie's strong suit, just in general.
We could have lost.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The fight scenes, I want to emphasize the editing on the fight scenes is flawless.
Yeah.
Mostly because there's not a lot of cuts, like you pointed out. But unfortunately, Dragon, I'm sorry, what you were about to make a point?
Oh, I think I lost it, Tiki.
Okay, my bad. Essentially what it is it just feels like, again, I really do feel like the 3 acts in their own right are all really strong acts. It's just the connective tissue to get from act to act is a little bit wonky.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I think it's I think I remember what it was going to be. But yeah, we could have cut 15 minutes from the movie, and at the very least, we could have kept the three edge a little bit more mano a mano, even keeping the action for the most part. I think we could have lost some of that action where it's like, okay, things aren't going well. I think we get it. Can we
Sure.
we put Shang-Chi into the water? I think we should maybe cut back and see what happens.
I kind of agree with that. I think the reveal of the dragon was really cool, but to me, it was kind of like a half-baked version of like what they did with the Black Panther death.
I mean, I don't know if that's the right equivocation, but sure, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Like clearly he's not dead and he's in the water, so yeah.
Right. It's like obviously we knew he wasn't actually gonna die. It's like, come on, they're not gonna kill off an Avenger in his origin movie. I mean, if they did, that'd be a fucking bold choice. But
speaking of death, though, there's something we should mention though. So I'm not crazy about this, but I mean, it's kind of I want to see where we're going with like this whole 10 Rings Will Return thing. Is that we set up a really solid Mandarin, and then we killed him off.
I don't mind though, because I feel like the character arc, we needed it for the character arc. It's like sometimes standalone, a villain with a standalone narrative is like, I feel like it makes the movie as a standalone movie more complete.
I mean, it's true. It just kind of in part worries me that we're going back to the Phase 1 days. Like, hey, we have our villains, then we kill them off.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, we have, Captain Jack Sparrow in space out there, so.
What?
You know who I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm sorry. I can't with that guy until I see more of him.
Anyway.
Ooh, look at me. I'm going to mug the camera for 20 minutes. Okay, I'm done.
Anyway. But yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, it was an interesting choice to, we gave Shang-Chi the rings. We gave, he got the rings with the death of his father. And I liked the moment that really struck me is like the fact the rings chose him before that death.
Totally.
I thought it wasn't like he gave them to him. Is that, that I love that was the wake-up call for Wenwu of like, I'm not worthy of these rings anymore.
John Kelly said Wenwu spent like 5 minutes punching at the gate. That could have been shaved out. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. It's like, come on, Wenwu, just look at it for a second. Just a second. This is not going the way it should.
Right.
Get a drill or something.
Yeah, I think also the training sequences, like leading up to the final fight, you could have probably trimmed some stuff out. Yeah,
Sure.
I think the stuff you can trim out is certainly stuff more in the end of Act 2, leading to Act 3. Because I think Blue Dragon does make a point. There is a bit of a plate spinning. It's like, oh, we're in this one location and we're just gonna have to like prepare, and you'll see a training montage and just like, and that'll eat up how much time until we have the final scene.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, I mean, like in between all that, it's like, the narrative might be not perfect, but I mean, genuinely, we have some of the best stuff in the MCU within this movie, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
But I have one last bit we should hit, unless there's anything else you want to bring up, Tiki.
I'm trying to think. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
Really quick, we were talking about the cameos. I think it's funny that, like, we talked about Bruce, but we didn't talk about the other cameo at all because,
Captain Marvel.
It is who it is. So, I do think it's funny that at this point the MCU is basically just rolling with the fact that she's not relatable.
Again, at her best in Endgame, honestly, it's the best she's been.
Yeah, I don't know, just Ruffalo's delivery of like, yeah, I don't have her number.
Here's the thing we really
that cracked me up. I love that it's basically just like a meta gag at this point.
Here's what we got to do more of. We got to. It was in there in Endgame, and it's kind of was there during the press circuit as well. You just kind of feel it. I think you know what I'm talking about. Like Don Cheadle just has a little bit of contempt for Brie Larson.
Yes.
And I just love the fact we had like a little bit of that with Rhodey in Endgame. I just love that was a running gag. If they ever meet again, it's like. It's like, yeah,
it's like, I do think it's an unfortunate situation. And I look, Brie Larson is a very talented actress. If any of you have watched Room,
Yeah. Or Person 12.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, it's like, I do just genuinely think that it was like a weird combination of circumstances that caused the situation that we're kind of
and
in
again,
now.
I think Captain Marvel 2 is looking up, given like all the things we've been putting into motion. With
Sure.
I know we haven't seen Miss Marvel yet, but between that and Monica Rambeau, and again, she was better.
As long as our boy gets a cameo.
Yep.
All right.
And yeah, that's again, also, as John Kelly points out, Captain Marvel and her ever-changing hair. Yeah, she had long hair again, which is like, oh man, the short-haired Captain Marvel's the good one.
Carol literally changes her hair every movie. Rocket joked about it, but here she is again, changing another hairdo.
I mean, if she's not changing the costume, you gotta change the hair for the toys, right?
Oh God.
Sad but true.
All right.
Here's holographic Carol.
But yeah, and then like I said, like just with the Hotel California thing, I just think ending with Wong in the karaoke bar, specifically singing Hotel California, it was such a great punchline to go out on. And like I said, it was just like, I honestly think the Hotel California thing, like, might be one of the MCU's best ever uses of the comedy rule of threes. I really do. They were spot on with it.
That was going to be my last point, by the way, the whole Wong karaoke thing. Just the kind of overall is with the ending that gets us there too. I gotta tell you, I love how we end this movie. Just the two of them at that karaoke bars, talking about the crazy adventure, that they've had, but that has not fundamentally changed who they are, as people. And they're still hanging out at that karaoke bar, only now, not only with their friends, but their new friends like Wong. And there is kind of a nice passing of the torch with like one of the other Asian characters in the MCU, kind of meeting.
Totally.
It just feels really nice. Feels light. I think it was the perfect way to end the movie.
Yeah, agree.
I mean, considering this is sort of following up from how Wong randomly listens to Beyonce in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So Wong is definitely not above enjoying popular music.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that Doctor Strange introduced him to more music, which again we set up at the very first moment of Doctor Strange. Stephen Strange is a music file. He loves listening to music during surgery.
All right. Rohith, you have any other things to say?
I am very interested to see what the sequels will do, because Shang-Chi doesn't really have much of a developed rogues gallery outside of his dad. I'm curious if his sister will be sort of the main antagonist for a sequel, or it could be a situation like Doctor Strange 2, where she's in the movie, but there's another villain. I think everyone's just sort of clamoring for either Iron Fist and or the Agents of Atlas, the new iteration that's predominantly Asian superheroes to come into play for the sequels. So I would not be surprised, the second movie, it could be a tournament arc that either has Iron Fist or maybe it's honestly, because the thing is Shang-Chi, he has some it when it's not a martial arts book, it also sometimes is an espionage kind of a thing. And six characters that didn't show up in this movie, I could imagine them showing up in the sequel, and then they recruit Shang-Chi to infiltrate the Ten Rings or the tournament, to take down his sister or whatever. So that could be something that
I want a tournament as the next movie. I really do. Between that or Fing Fang Foom, that's what I want for Shang-Chi going forward.
All right, cool.
Have Fing Fang Foom be the final boss in the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I think that'll do it, guys. So I'm just gonna run down who is here. We have LAB, Atomic Beast, Donovan Martin, that guy. Super Billy did pop up. Let's see, Donovan Martin. Am I missing anyone, Dragon?
You did
John
Kelly. John Kelly.
John Kelly, of course.
LAB.
Billy. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, LAB. Okay. You guys all rock. Oh my god, the engagement in this thing was insane. I love it. I love it. Stay tuned tomorrow. We're going to be breaking down the Rick and Morty finale. And yeah, without further ado, have a good night, everyone.
Sean, what were you thinking?
On the Dark Desert Highway.